Brian, 32, was living what appeared to be an ideal life. A skilled software developer, he had recently landed a promising new job at a tech startup in Chicago, a position that would undoubtedly take his career to the next level. His apartment, located in a quiet part of the city, was minimalistic yet cozy, a reflection of his personality. Focused, reserved, and methodical. Brian had a loving girlfriend, Olivia, with whom he had been in a stable relationship for over 2 years. But in the early morning hours of December 17, 2015, Brian's life would come to a brutal and abrupt end. His body was discovered by his neighbor, Sarah, who had grown concerned after not seeing him for a few days. When she entered his apartment, Sarah found Brian lying lifeless on the floor, a single stab wound to his chest. His personal belongings, including his wallet and phone, were undisturbed. The scene was clean, eerily silent, with no signs of forced entry or a struggle. The police were immediately called. Detective Maria Lawson, known for her methodical approach and sharp instincts, was assigned to the case. Upon arrival, she quickly assessed the situation. The apartment was clean and orderly, typical for Brian. The lack of evidence at the scene made it feel like a carefully executed crime. Something planned, not an accident or a random act of violence. Detective Lawson was faced with a chilling realization. This was no ordinary murder. There was a deeper mystery waiting to be uncovered. Brian's life was unremarkable, at least on the surface. He was well-liked, focused on his career, and had no known enemies. His girlfriend, Olivia, described their relationship as loving and supportive, with no significant issues between them. But as the investigation progressed, Lawson learned that Brian's seemingly perfect life hid a series of secrets that would eventually come to light. Olivia had recently discovered that Brian had been having an affair with a colleague named Rachel King. Olivia was devastated by the betrayal and had confronted Brian about it just days before his death. Brian had promised Olivia that he would end things with Rachel, but the emotional fallout from the affair had clearly taken a toll on all involved. Brian's relationship with Rachel, which had started innocently as a professional collaboration, had evolved into a passionate affair that threatened to tear his relationship with Olivia apart. In the days leading up to the murder, Olivia confronted Brian about the affair, demanding that he choose between her and Rachel. Brian had promised to end things with Rachel once and for all. But had he? And what consequences did his decision have? As Detective Lawson delved deeper into Brian's personal life, it became clear that his murder was not a random act. The lack of theft or forced entry suggested that the killer knew Brian, and the precision of the stab wound pointed to a crime of passion. The scene was too controlled, too deliberate for it to have been a spur-of-the-moment crime. Detective Lawson began to suspect that the murder was tied to Brian's affair. Was it a crime driven by jealousy, anger, or revenge? Who stood to gain the most from Brian's death? The focus shifted to Rachel King, the woman Brian had been involved with. She was, after all, the one person who had a direct emotional connection to Brian's life, and she had much to lose. Rachel's involvement was undeniable, but when Detective Lawson initially questioned her, Rachel denied any involvement in the murder. She claimed that she had ended things with Brian amicably and had no reason to harm him. But the more Detective Lawson dug into Rachel's life, the more suspicious her behavior became. Rachel had a history of being emotionally volatile, and it soon became clear that she had not fully accepted the end of her affair with Brian. Detective Lawson brought Rachel in for questioning, hoping to gain more insight into her relationship with Brian. At first, Rachel appeared calm, almost too calm. She spoke about Brian with a sense of detachment, as though their affair had never meant much. She claimed that she had been at home alone the night of the murder, but no one could corroborate her alibi. The investigation into Rachel's finances revealed that she had been struggling financially. Despite earning a decent salary as a programmer, she had accumulated significant debt. What was more concerning was the discovery that Brian had recently transferred a large sum of money to Rachel's account. Rachel explained the transfer as a loan to help her with some personal expenses, but Lawson found this explanation unconvincing. In fact, Rachel had made several attempts to reach out to Brian in the days before his death. Her phone records showed an intense exchange of texts, all pleading for Brian to give her one last chance. As the investigation continued, Lawson discovered that Rachel had become fixated on Brian, and the emotional attachment had turned toxic. The more she dug into Rachel's background, the more unsettling details emerged. Rachel's need for control, her volatile temper, and her inability to let go. As the case progressed, Detective Lawson uncovered a hidden layer to the story. Brian and Rachel had been in contact the night before the murder, and Brian had been planning a trip to visit Olivia. Could Rachel have seen this as the final rejection? The moment when Brian chose Olivia over her? Rachel's motive became clearer as the investigation unfolded. Her feelings for Brian had never truly dissipated, despite his decision to end their affair. Brian's rejection, combined with his promises to Olivia, pushed Rachel to the edge. Rachel had never truly gotten over Brian, and the idea of losing him to another woman ignited a violent fury within her. Rachel's emotional turmoil had reached a boiling point. She had been struggling with her finances and had come to depend on Brian for emotional and financial support. When Brian ended their relationship, Rachel's world began to crumble. She couldn't bear the thought of him moving on with Olivia, especially knowing that she had failed to keep him. The emotional pain of losing Brian, coupled with her financial dependence on him, led Rachel to commit the unthinkable act. On the night of Brian's murder, Rachel went to his apartment, determined to confront him once and for all. The argument between them escalated, fueled by jealousy and desperation. In a moment of rage, Rachel grabbed a knife from Brian's kitchen and stabbed him. It was a crime born of love, rage, and betrayal. The final breakthrough came when Detective Lawson examined Rachel's digital footprint. Investigators uncovered a series of online searches on Rachel's computer, including how to get rid of a body and how to frame someone for murder. In addition, security footage from the building's hallways captured Rachel entering Brian's apartment that night. The footage was grainy, but it was enough to place her at the scene of the crime. Forensic evidence confirmed that Rachel's fingerprints were found on the murder weapon, a kitchen knife from Brian's apartment. Despite Rachel's attempts to cover her tracks, the evidence was damning. She had been caught in a web of lies, and the investigation had uncovered the true extent of her involvement in the murder. Rachel King was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. During the trial, she claimed she had acted in self-defense during a heated confrontation with Brian, but the jury was unconvinced. The overwhelming evidence, combined with Rachel's toxic emotional state, led to her conviction. The case was a tragic reminder of how deep emotional wounds, jealousy, and the inability to let go can lead to devastating consequences. Olivia, though relieved that justice had been served, was left to mourn the loss of Brian and grapple with the pain of betrayal. Rachel, meanwhile, faced the consequences of her actions, caught in the grip of her own emotions and the destructive power of unrequited love. Detective Lawson, though satisfied with the resolution, couldn't shake the emotional toll the case had taken. The case of Brian was one that revealed the dark side of love and obsession, a story of betrayal, revenge, and the ultimate price of emotional turmoil.